What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JP's on keys. It's too easy. You know, it's a great day when Epic History TV uploads a banger. Let's go. You know how much of a fiend I am for history content. Shout out to Epic History TV. Give them a subscription. If you're not subscribed to that channel, you need to hit that subscribe button. Most definitely. But now we got the Persian Empire. Salamis Salamis 480 BC, the battle for Greece. Let's go. Shout out to Epic History. Shout out to everybody who supports the channel. Leave a like if you enjoy. Hit that subscribe button. We back with another video though. Let's get it, guys.
In the 5th century BC, the great king of Persia ruled the greatest empire the world had ever seen. It stretched from modern Pakistan to Macedonia and contained 1/5 of the world's population. The Persian Empire was sophisticated, rich and all-conquering, and in 480 BC, King Xerxes led its mighty forces against Greece, a patchwork of tiny city-states that lay on the western fringes of his vast realm. He had decided to punish the Greeks for having dared to meddle in his affairs. But seeking vengeance, conquest and glory, he would find only disaster and death in the Straits of Salamis.
Yo, look at these animations! Oh, it's Salamis. It's not Salamis. Like multiple pieces of butcher meat. Salamis.
This video is sponsored by Historic Mail, a unique offering and perfect gift for any history lover. Historic Mail has revived the lost art of letter writing. Sign up and each week in the mail you'll receive a faithful reproduction of a letter written by a famous historical figure, such as Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, or even Queen Victoria. You'll also receive a typed transcript of the letter, plus a document explaining its historical context.
This is really for the history nerds out there. That would be fire though. Like to kind of stack like on top of your wall like a little heirloom or something like that. That would be tough.
Historic Mail's brilliant idea is to offer insight into the lives of great historical characters in the way that only a primary source can, with the added pleasure of a tangible historical document arriving on your doorstep. Their letter packs cover various themes. Pick the American history option and you'll receive mail from characters such as George Washington, Abe Lincoln, Mark Twain and others. Other themes include World War II, leaders and their lovers, and the life of Winston Churchill. Along the way, you'll get intimate insight into the lives of iconic figures, such as this example, in which Queen Victoria consoles Mrs. Mary Todd Lincoln following the president's assassination. Historic Mail makes an ideal gift for any history lover, with a certificate you can share with your favorite person to reveal their surprise gift. Visit historicmail.com/epic and use the code EPIC10 for an exclusive 10% discount on any product. Thanks again to Historic Mail for sponsoring this video.
That would be a tough gift, I can't even lie.
The Historiae of Herodotus of Halicarnassus is presented here so that the great and marvelous deeds of Greeks and barbarians should not go unsung.
Before we get into this, the ancient Greeks and Romans had some of the most fire names ever. What's the name? Herodotus? That name is freaking fire. What was the name? King? What? Julius? What was the other? The king? What was the other dude we covered? The dude that had the big army in the speech. Hold on, it was the dude with the speech. I forgot. My mind is blanking. But a lot of these ancient Greeks and Romans had some of the most fire names ever. But the thing is, it would be kind of weird to name your kid that now. Like, imagine somebody naming a kid Herodotus in 2021.
The events that follow are known chiefly from the writings of Herodotus of Halicarnassus, an ancient Greek colony on what's now the west coast of Turkey. About 30 years after the Persian invasion, Herodotus began his Historiae, his inquiries into its origins and course. Like most people in the ancient world, he believed in omens, oracles, and divine intervention. But he also believed that humans could shape their own fate. So he traveled across Greece and the Persian Empire, reading records and inscriptions, speaking to local people, and weighing up the evidence according to his own reason. The Roman writer Cicero would later dub Herodotus the father of history.
I see where they're coming from, because I feel like during this time, like, so much was unknown that it was really people literally spent their lives trying to figure out life and trying to figure out just like what the whole purpose of this life means, because there was so many people that were trying to study like human theory and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that now, because it's like we have access to so much information now that we can really just form our own opinions based on somebody's level of whoever's research we deem is right. You know what I'm saying?
War is the father and king of all. Some he has made gods, and some men, some slaves, and some free. The root of the conflict between Greece and Persia went back a generation. In the 6th century BC, King Cyrus the Great brought the Greek colonies of western Anatolia under Persian rule. But in 499 they rebelled and appealed to their fellow Greeks for aid. Only Athens and Eritrea answered the call. Together, the Greeks burned the provincial capital Sardis and its temple to the earth goddess Cybele. It seemed like a major victory, but the Persians responded with impressive speed, and the Greeks were soon in full retreat, back to the coast. It took the Persians 4 years to finally stamp out the revolt in western Anatolia. Then the great king Darius turned his attention to the Greeks across the sea, who dared to aid the rebels.
He said, all right, you gonna come attack the crowd. You gonna come over here and try to lead a rebellion and then take down the capital city? Oh yeah, we coming for blood. We getting it back in blood, bro. You know, we coming for y'all next. Darius was like, hey, I see what y'all did. Y'all tried to come for us. We got y'all. Payback is a mug.
He sent ambassadors to the many city-states of Greece, demanding earth and water as tokens of submission. Many submitted, but 2 did not. Athens, a young democracy fiercely protective of its liberty, and Sparta, a conservative, militarized state that took orders from no one.
This is Sparta! I had to, bro. It was low-hanging fruit. I had to. It was low-hanging fruit, bro.
Both cities answered the great king by kicking his envoys down a well, where they were told they might find all the earth and water they required. In 490 BC, Darius dispatched a mighty expedition to bring the Greeks to heel. Naxos was the largest of several islands to submit. Eritrea was sacked and burned. Then the Persians landed at Marathon to mete out the same punishment to Athens. Athenian troops, with those of their small neighbor Plataea, met them on the beach. Though outnumbered 2-1, the Greek soldiers attacked. Their hoplite infantry fought with large, heavy shields and spears in a tight phalanx formation. The more lightly equipped Persians could not stand up to their onslaught. Persian troops were slaughtered on the beach. The survivors scrambled back to their ships. Athens had been saved. 4 years later, Darius died and was succeeded by his son Xerxes. He now took up the task of punishing the Greeks.
Xerxes that's a fire name, bro. Xerxes. That is fire, dog.
And avenging his father's humiliation. The new King of Kings summoned troops and ships from across his empire. and ordered a bridge of boats to be built across the Hellespont. In spring 480 BC, his gigantic invasion force crossed from Asia into Europe. Herodotus estimated its size at 2.3 million men, an impossible number that could not have been fed or watered. Modern historians think 200,000 more likely, still vast for the age. It was accompanied by an enormous fleet, 1,000 warships or more, supplied by Persia's vassal states across the eastern Mediterranean. Greece appeared an easy target. Its many independent city-states were notorious for constant infighting. But in the face of the Persian threat, 31 states put aside their differences and convened a council of war at the Isthmus of Corinth to plan the defense of Greece. These states were later commemorated on a giant serpent column at Delphi, the Greeks' most sacred site. At the top of the list, the Lacedaemonians, another name for the Spartans, followed by the Athenians and Corinthians. Knowing the Persians would invade from the north, the Greeks sent 10,000 men to hold a mountain pass at Tempe, near Mount Olympus. But when the troops arrived, they found the position could be easily outflanked. Nor were they confident about the loyalty of Thessaly to their rear. So the troops withdrew. Instead, the Greeks would make their stand at Thermopylae, with 7,000 men led by the Spartan king Leonidas.
It makes sense. See, makes sense. Sometimes you gotta fall back. Sometimes you gotta fall back to reposition yourself in a better position. Because you see the way they had it right in front of Thessaly. Because you kind of iffy about the people behind you, thinking they might turn their back. So it's like we gonna fall past it. And you see how quick Thessaly fell, though. You see how quick that town fell. So say, hey. Sometimes you gotta fall back in order to stand your ground better. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is fire, though. I like this.
The Greek fleet arrived at Artemisium to guard the sea flank. Like the alliance itself, the Greek fleet was an uneasy coalition, with ships from city-states like Athens and Aegina that had until recently been at war. The Athenian contingent was by far the largest. It only existed thanks to the discovery 3 years earlier of rich silver mines at Laurium. It had taken the foresight of Themistocles, an Athenian statesman and general, to persuade the people of Athens not to spend this windfall on cash handouts for themselves. Instead, he'd urged them to spend the money on a fleet of 200 triremes for their own future security.
Smart.
It was a decision that may ultimately have saved Greece. Athens, however, was so distrusted by other Greeks that they refused to serve under an Athenian admiral. So Themistocles tactfully accepted the appointment of a Spartan, Eurybiades, to lead the fleet, even though Spartans had no expertise in naval warfare. Spray flying from the oars, the fleets sweep together, ploughing through the swell, ram teeth bared. Both the Greek and Persian fleets relied on a single type of warship, one that dominated naval warfare in the Mediterranean, the trireme. Sleek, agile and delicate, the trireme carried masts and sails for cruising. But in combat, these were lowered, and the ship relied on 3 banks of rowers, which gave the trireme its name.
Oh, so they're like on top of each... What? They're on top... Bro, the ingenuity and the engineering required to design these ships. So it's a row, like no pun intended. It's like a column of rows.
The ship carried 170 oarsmen in total, who could produce a top speed of around 10 knots, to smash their primary weapon, a bronze-sheathed ram, into the hull of an enemy ship, leaving it crippled.
Oh, they said we finna bring the action to you. We just boom. We're playing straight battering ram with that thing. Bumper cars, bumper boats.
Boarding the enemy was another tactic. A Greek ship usually carried 14 marines, 10 hoplites armed with spear and shield, and 4 archers. The ship's commander, the triarch, sat at the stern, alongside the helmsman, the kybernetes, who guided the ship's course with twin rudders.
Yo, he got the big things to control it. Yo, that's fire. Yo, that's hard. Like, he's out here. Like, yo,
A boatswain and bow officer relayed orders to the oarsmen, while a piper helped them keep time. A carpenter and 10 sailors brought the ship's total complement to 200 men. Every ship had a name, and a painted eye on the bow to avert ill fortune. Herodotus describes the Greek ships as more heavily built than the Persian ships, although in what way, we're not sure. He also tells us that Persian ships carried many more marines, 44 in total. Here, the sons of Athens set in place the bright foundation stone of freedom. While Leonidas and the Greeks held the pass at Thermopylae, the Persian fleet sailed south along the rugged coastline of Magnesia. But one night, while at anchor, they were hit by a violent storm. Hundreds of ships were wrecked and damaged. Thousands of sailors drowned. According to Herodotus, the Persians further weakened their force by sending 200 triremes around the island of Euboea to cut off the Greek retreat. But the entire squadron was destroyed by another storm.
Dang, bro. You did all that just to lose all your ships. Just to lose a quarter of your ships. Like,
Herodotus offers little supporting evidence for this operation, which would have been extremely reckless, and some historians doubt it ever happened. Despite Persian losses, the Greeks still faced odds of nearly 3-1 at Artemisium. And they weren't just outnumbered. The Persian fleet was more experienced in naval warfare, particularly the elite squadron from Phoenicia in modern Lebanon. Nevertheless, over 3 days of tense naval combat, the Greek fleet held its nerve and kept the Persians at bay. But at the end of the 3rd day, disastrous news arrived. Leonidas and the Greeks at Thermopylae had been encircled. The Spartan king and half his men had been killed. The pass had fallen. It seemed the efforts of the Greek fleet had been in vain. Central Greece and Athens itself now lay open to the Persian onslaught. As the Greek fleet withdrew, the Persians marched south, burning cities, farms and sanctuaries, though sparing Thebes, one of several Greek city-states to side with Persia. To Athenian dismay, the Greek army, dominated by troops from the Peloponnese, gathered at the Isthmus of Corinth and began building a great wall to protect their own homes from the invader. Athens was to be abandoned. The Greek fleet began to evacuate civilians to Troezen, Aegina, and Salamis. Pallas Athena cannot appease Olympian Zeus, but the wooden wall alone, the wooden wall shall stand.
It's getting good. It's getting good. Get your popcorn. Yo, I love these videos, man. I can't lie. This is always fun to just watch the animations, especially. You know what I'm saying? Because like you can really get a glimpse of how it might have been back then. You know?
In the months before the Persian invasion, the Athenians had sent a delegation to the Greeks' holiest shrine, the Oracle of Delphi, seeking guidance for the upcoming war. They'd received only a terrifying warning. "Why are you sitting there, you fools? "Flee, flee to the ends of the earth." But a second oracle offered the Athenians a sliver of hope. Athens could trust in its wooden wall. A few Athenians thought the oracle referred to a thorn hedge that had once enclosed the city's Acropolis, its citadel, so they fortified themselves there. But when the Persians arrived, they were surrounded and slaughtered. Xerxes then burned Athens and its temples to avenge the destruction of Sardis 18 years before. Themistocles argued that Athens' wooden wall was her new fleet. But as Greek naval commanders met at Salamis in mid-September, the situation looked grim. A king of Sparta was dead, Athens was burning, the Greek alliance was on the brink of collapse. Themistocles was desperate to stop the Peloponnesian ships retreating to the isthmus. He warned them that the enemy's greater numbers and faster ships meant the Greeks would be defeated if they fought on the open sea. But in the narrow straits of Salamis, with less room to maneuver, the Persians wouldn't be able to exploit their greater numbers, and the heavier Greek ships had the advantage. Themistocles even warned the other Greeks that if they retreated now, the Athenian ships would quit the alliance and sail to Italy. So the fleet commander, Eurybiades, accepted Themistocles' plan.
He had no choice. You was going to lose a whole big chunk of your force if you didn't do it. So yeah, you ain't had no choice but to accept that.
But Themistocles worried that the Peloponnesians would change their minds. Secretly, he ordered a trusted servant to go to the Persian camp, to tell Xerxes that the Greeks were in a state of terror and would flee at first light. Just 8 miles away at Phaleron, the great king sought the counsel of his generals and admirals. All advised him to attack the Greeks immediately to win the final victory that would end the war. All except Queen Artemisia of Halicarnassus, commanding 5 ships from Caria. Why risk battle, she argued, when the great king had only to threaten southern Greece by land or sea, and the Peloponnesians would rush home to defend their land, and the Greek alliance would split. Then victory was certain. But Xerxes sought the glory of battle, and was confident of an easy victory. Then Themistocles' messenger arrived, telling the king exactly what he wanted to hear. The Greeks were terrified and preparing to flee. He must strike immediately. Xerxes ordered the Persian fleet to sea that night, so they would be in position to annihilate the Greeks as they tried to escape at dawn. Meanwhile, at the Greek camp, an Athenian named Aristides arrived with sacred relics from Aegina to inspire the fleet. He also brought news that the enemy had put to sea and blocked the straits. Themistocles' ruse had worked. Retreat was no longer an option. The Greeks would have to fight at Salamis. O divine Salamis, you will be the death of mothers' sons. The earliest surviving accounts of the battle that followed, by Herodotus and the Athenian playwright Aeschylus, are sometimes vague and allow different interpretations, but they are detailed enough to allow us to reconstruct the most likely course of events. The Persian fleet put to sea at night, around 600 triremes, outnumbering the Greeks 3-2. Expecting hard fighting at the entrance to the strait, they landed 400 soldiers on the tiny island of Psytalia. Their role was to finish off any shipwrecked Greeks who made it to shore. Then, keeping close to the mainland, the Persian fleet silently advanced into the narrow strait, the elite Phoenicians leading the way. According to a later Greek historian, Diodorus Siculus, the Persians also sent an Egyptian squadron around Salamis to cut off any Greek escape into the Gulf of Megara. but this event is not mentioned in earlier sources and may be an invention. At dawn, Xerxes arrived at an observation post overlooking the strait. The great king was confident that his presence would inspire his captains to fight with more determination than they'd shown at Artemisium a few weeks before.
I think you might be in for a big surprise. I think you might be in for a big surprise, buddy.
He was accompanied by scribes, ready to note down the names of captains who fought well, and those who did not. The Persian...
Whoa, you got people keeping... What? Whoa! You got people literally sitting there that are watching the battle and writing down stuff. Like an evaluation in the middle of a war battle. I mean, that might happen before. That might happen now, but the thing is, like, you got people literally out there watching. Oh, you see? He's killed 13 men today. Oh, he's leading his men to... He tried to lead his men there and all of his men died. He did a bad job. Like, bro, that's crazy. They got scouts and people watching you while you're still in the battle. That's crazy.
Fleet lined the northern side of the strait.
It's like, bro, forget not trying to get killed. You're also trying to not get a bad report. Wow.
Ready to hunt down Greek ships as they fled. What they saw instead was 368 Greek triremes emerging from the bays of Salamis, ready to fight. They formed a line of battle, with the best squadrons on each flank. On the left, the Athenians. On the right, the Aeginetans. As they rode, they sang paeans, Greek hymns of battle. At first they held formation, perhaps waiting for the morning breeze to blow at their back, or for more Persians to crowd into the strait. Then a Greek ship saw an opening and attacked. Soon both fleets were fully engaged. The battle became a chaotic mass of ships, wheeling, weaving, looking for a chance to ram an enemy and avoid the same fate themselves. In the narrow strait, the Persian squadrons became increasingly disordered. Any ship trying to fall back ran into other ships trying to press forward, their captains eager to impress the great king. What's more, the Persian oarsmen had been rowing all night and soon began to tire. The Greeks were fresh and fighting for their freedom.
Smart. Oh my, I finally realized the plan. What they were trying to do. It's like, I'm like, okay, I understand you're going to stand and fight, but it's like you're outnumbered like crazy. Then it's like, oh, but like I understand the plan. Like you were trying to get them tired. So then like you were trying to get them fatigued overnight because they had just rowed. Like they were doing an all-nighter. Like, yo, we're going to get there in one night and try to surprise them as soon as they wake up. But then they was already ready. They was fresh. Then the Persians, they was rowing like crazy all night. So they're already, you know what I'm saying? They're already hurting.
The Phoenician squadron suffered heavy losses at the hands of the heavy Greek triremes. Some Phoenician captains, who'd abandoned their ships and made it to shore, were brought before Xerxes. They blamed the unfolding disaster on the cowardice of their allies, the Carians and Ionians. Just at that moment, Xerxes saw an Ionian ship ram an Athenian trireme, before it was rammed in turn by an Aeginetan ship. Undaunted, the Ionian marines counterattacked, boarding and taking the Aeginetan ship. After observing this evidence of Ionian bravery, Xerxes ordered that the Phoenician captains be taken away and executed.
Ooh.
Wrecked ships, floundering men and corpses clogged the strait, as the battle turned decisively against the Persians. Aeschylus, the playwright, who almost certainly fought in the battle, compared the Greeks killing Persians to fishermen spearing tuna. As Persian ships tried to escape, they were hit in the flank by the Aeginetans, who distinguished themselves above all other Greeks that day. Queen Artemisia was among those trying to escape the slaughter, with an Athenian trireme in hot pursuit. Seeing her path blocked by a friendly ship, she gave the order to ram it. When the Athenian captain saw this, he thought he must be pursuing an allied ship, and went looking for other prey. The remnants of the Persian fleet streamed back to Phaleron. In a final ruthless act of the battle, Aristides landed with a force of hoplites on Psytalia and massacred the 400 Persians who'd been abandoned there. In total, the Persians lost around 200 ships and 12,000 men, including the fleet commander Ariabignes, a half-brother of the great king himself. The Greeks lost just 40 ships. It proved to be one of the greatest naval victories in history.
Oh, wow.
Our land bewails the men she bore, slaughtered for Xerxes, who has fed hell's hungry jaws with Persian dead. The Greeks had inflicted a humiliating defeat on Xerxes.
Another humiliation, just like his father got humiliated.
And ended all hopes of an easy conquest. Now the king heeded Queen Artemisia's advice and ordered his general Mardonius to continue the campaign in spring, while he returned to Asia with the bulk of his army.
Hey, sometimes you gotta listen to your woman, bro. Sometimes she's right, and she was right on this one. You was like, nah, I know what I'm doing. I want to do it right now, and then you lose 12,000 men and 200 ships, and yeah. She was probably like, I told you, and now look what happened. You lost all those men, and you lost the battle. Look what happened. I know she was grilling him as soon as he got back. I already know.
If Mardonius was victorious, Artemisia had told him, the glory would belong to Xerxes. If Mardonius was defeated, the blame belonged to Mardonius. But there was no victory for Mardonius. The next summer, he faced the combined Greek army at Plataea. In a crushing Persian defeat, Mardonius was killed, along with much of his army. On the very same day, according to Herodotus, the Greek fleet inflicted another heavy defeat on the Persians at Mycale. The threat of Persian invasion was over. In the years that followed, the Greek counterattack would begin, led by a new Greek alliance, the Delian League. Salamis has been credited with more significance than almost any other battle in history. The victory that saved Greece from slavery and paved the way for its classical age. This was the period in which the arts, democracy, science, and philosophy flourished in the Greek world. Thus, Salamis has been hailed as the battle that saved the cradle of Western civilization. It's a dramatic argument that can be overstated. Greek defeat would not necessarily have led to the extinction of Greek culture. And though 5th century Athens was a revolutionary, pioneering experiment in democracy, it's not the sole blueprint on which modern democracy is based. Nevertheless, Salamis remains a decisive battle and a turning point of history. And thanks to Herodotus, it survives as one of history's oldest examples of a heroic struggle against the odds and struggle for freedom. We have many people to thank.
This episode was fire, cuz! That thing was fire! You know what I'm saying? I'm always keen to learning new history about things I've really never learned before, especially like ancient Greek and like ancient ancient European history, like in the BC time, BC, AD, and all that. Isn't there? I know there's like a big debate on what BC or AD means, because I know with the with people who are Christian, BC is they think it's before Christ, like before Jesus was born, and then AD is like after death, like after Jesus died. So it's like, I mean, I know it's other meanings for people who are not necessarily religious, but it's always good to hear perspectives from everybody. Like, this is fire. I like this. This history is fire. Anyway, thank you again for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed. Shout out to Epic History, man. Epic History always drops the fire. Shout out to them so much. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Drop a like if you enjoy. Hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload. Please share the video, share it wherever you share videos at. Thank you. Please have a great day. Stay safe, stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.